also call out our event sponsor, the Maxwell Alexander Gallery, who has been very supportive of this exhibition, which is great. One of the things we like to talk about a lot is how this art world is a very codependent ecosystem. And when everybody works together and is supportive, everyone benefits. Museums, galleries, you name it, hotels, all of us are in this together, so it's pretty great. So we really appreciate our partnerships and our friends and our collectors. And I want to congratulate these guys on an unbelievable exhibition opening last night and pretty much a sold out show. We had 23 pieces.
Thank you.
23 pieces total and 21 sold in less than 24
21.
hours. Or 21, sorry.
21 and 19.
29, yeah, thank you. That's why we have these guys here, not me.
God, you
21
guys know.
pieces
Okay,
total,
so we just
19
talked
sold,
about
which
it
is
before,
pretty
isn't it?
phenomenal. And that speaks to the work that they're doing, which is why we're here.
And the Couse-Sharp.
Well, thanks, you guys. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I'm Davison Koenig. I'm the executive director and curator at the Couse-Sharp Historic Site. So, great to have you all here. Without further ado, let me introduce the Sun Brothers. Glenn Dean, Josh Elliott, and Mr. Logan Maxwell Hagege. Okay. Woo! Big round of applause. So, I'd love to start with how you guys all got together and how we went from young aspiring artists to Sun Brothers.
Who's going to chime in? Can I start?
Yeah, you can do
I guess
it.
we met in the early 2000s. I should know this because we've been talking about this a lot. Who did I meet first, Josh or Glenn? I think Josh. I met Josh at an outdoor painting show in Carmel, California. And we were two young artists that were in the show and gravitated towards each other. I think for that reason, we were younger and kind of saw the urge to get better at our craft. And same situation with Glenn. I met him at an outdoor painting show that was associated with the California Art Club. And same deal, like we were the two youngest artists in the show. I saw Glenn painting and was kind of blown away by what he was doing. And I was like, I want to be friends with that guy because he's really good. And then, I don't know, how did we all connect after that, the three of us?
A lot of going to that the Maynard-Dixon Country show in southern Utah, and I think that's when I first met Glenn too. But John and Terry Moyers had kind of been helping both of us out, and then they said, "You got to see this Glenn Dean guy's work." But I also saw your work in Southwest Art when you were the 21 under 31. I'm like, who's this guy? So then when we finally met, I think at Dixon Country, then maybe that was 2006, I think. First time I actually met you.
Something like that, maybe a little, around then, definitely.
But then Glenn put together, I think the next time we hung out was he had a place near Santa Fe and invited us all out, and there was a couple other artists there. Jeremy Lipking and Ernesto and MSCO was there, and went and painted Ghost Ranch and things like that.
Yeah, that was a fun trip.
Yeah.
Nice.
Logan and I went on a trip shortly after we met, right?
Yeah, really shortly after. Yeah, it was like a life-changing trip for me.
Yeah.
You had already been painting the desert quite a bit.
But still, same. I was seeing new things, definitely.
Yeah. We went on like, was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Yeah, something too.
We went on a road trip out in the Southwest. Like we started in California, Nevada, a little bit of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. And we had a quota where we wanted to paint at least 3 paintings every day out on location. And we were driving around in this old minivan that I had, and the whole back of the van was like stacked this deep with art supplies. And it was just epic. We kind of had no agenda, no plan. We just were driving and exploring. And yeah, it was by the end of the trip, we had a show's worth of paintings. I think
it was like 40 paintings.
Yeah, something like that.
Crazy.
Bunch of paintings. And for me, really, I mean, and Glenn's saying too, for him, life-changing trip, because I feel like for me, that's when I first really deeply connected with the desert and saw such a variety of landscape, but realized that my aesthetic and the way I saw the world connected so deeply with the subject matter. And I really never looked back from there.
Yeah.
That
was a
epic.
cool trip. Yeah, funny. We started out in California and we went to Death Valley first, and we camped, I think, that night. And it was like such a sleepless night. It was like 90 degrees and the wind was whipping. And so we didn't sleep at all, and that like set the tone for the rest of the trip. We were like giggling everywhere we went.
Yeah, just lack of
so
sleep.
that could happen right now because I haven't been sleeping. But it was kind of a fun trip for that as well. Just kind of made it another element to humor, I guess.
Yeah.
We couldn't even order food. We were just giggling. Crazy.
I can picture it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
David, can you turn up Glenn's mic a little bit? Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, 11. But yeah, it was a really fun trip, and we saw a lot of points of interest throughout the Southwest, and it was a nice variety. We went from Death Valley to Mount Carmel, Utah, and it was snowing, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Went from all that heat to snow. It was springtime, and then we ultimately did a loop where Santa Fe, I think, was the furthest point, or Canyon de Chelly maybe, and then we worked our way back to California. But it was a great trip.
We passed through Taos on that trip.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the furthest point, I guess. Yeah.
Was that the first time you came to Taos?
For me, I think Glenn had been
I
here
had
before.
been here before. Yeah.
Yeah, because you lived in Santa Fe for a while, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when was it that you realized that this American West was what you wanted to paint? I mean, you're in California, you're in Montana, you can paint anything. When was it that you said, this story is what I'm interested in?
I don't know. Early on, I was looking at artists like California Impressionists and seeing the crossover between how they were painting California and the California desert. And so my first time experiencing, actually I did my first painting in Arizona, my first outdoor painting. My parents lived there. They moved there when I was in high school, and I stayed on the coast because I was surfing and stuff. And it was my last year of high school. It would have been silly for them to uproot me. So my mom paints or painted back then more often. And so she took me out to do some landscape painting. And I just fell in love with that. And that opened those trips to the desert to see them just kind of opened up my eyes to the subject. That combined with looking at art and paintings of the desert from historic masters that really just set the tone. And so every time I'd visit a place that I'd only seen in paintings, it just kind of blew me away, and it just lit a fire in me, I think.
Right on.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever thought of it as the West, or I'm a Western painter. I was born in Montana, and I went out and was painting what I saw, the landscape around me. And I am influenced by Western painters, but also, like the Canadian Group of Seven and Nordic painters. And so it's just, for me, it's the landscape. I don't know if I still consider myself Western art. I just happen to live and paint in the West, and it's, I feel fortunate I was born in the West and not somewhere else, because it's surrounded by beauty.
Yeah, so I'll kind of echo back to my thing I was just talking about. That trip to the desert with Glenn on that road trip was kind of, I think, the spark for me. And then I think also sort of what Glenn was saying, learning more about artists that were working in this region. The further along I got in my development as a young artist, discovering these people that I felt saw the world in a similar way was a boost for me, because I didn't feel like I was crazy, because what I was painting at the time was a little, compared to my schooling, which was very traditional and academic, I was painting stuff that was a little bit more simplified and modern maybe. And so seeing those elements in other artists made me feel like I was maybe on the right path, and I was doing something that was okay, because other great artists that I was learning about were doing that. So artists of the past that were working in the 20s, 30s, and 40s are a huge inspiration for me. It's like even today I'll discover somebody new, and it's like, oh, this is like a long lost brother or sister for me. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking a lot in the lead up to the show, that there's this invisible connection with artists from the past. We don't know them, but it's like we feel like we're just connected. There's this invisible link between us. So it's just still super inspiring for me. And Yeah, I don't know. I live in California, and people often, I mean, almost the first question I get is, why do you paint the desert? And then I kind of have to, like, I almost want to say, like, have you ever been out there? Like, it's just like, it's super obvious to me, you know? But and then I just go through this long-winded story like I just did and explain it. But it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's such an inspiration, and endless well of inspiration for me.
I think it's nice, like where I don't paint a lot where I live, although it's beautiful in Helena, but I feel like when I'm at home, I'm focused on work in the studio, and then it's almost like dedicated paint trips going out to find these places where, yeah, there's not other distractions. This is what I'm here to do. And so I think it makes sense to live somewhere other than where you paint, you know, to me.
Yeah, I like the separation. Like, yeah, just like the.
It helps you to think about it more and to not take it for granted.
But there's like a filtering process that happens too, where you're relying a lot on memory. It's like you don't step outside and just look at something, oh, that's the color. You have to like rely on for my work anyway, most of the landscapes that are in the background, well, all the landscapes in the background of my paintings in this show are invented. The figures may have started or they all started from a photo, like there's a reference point, but I'm not copying the photo. And then the landscapes are completely made up to set the stage for the painting, the composition. So yeah, I like that separation because I'm relying on whatever strong memory was burned into my brain. And if it's strong enough to make it onto the canvas, then it feels worthy for me, you know.
It opens the door for interpretation. I mean, if all that information's right in front of you, but then you can come home and like, you can put in what, you know, how you felt about it, or other responses, or like you said, your memory of the place, and I think it almost becomes more truthful than the truth. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And you just remember
Emotional
like
memory.
yeah, just remember like how hot it was or something, and you're trying to achieve that effect in your painting.
Interesting. So having that perspective is usually part of your success or part of your process.
Yeah, it just adds more honesty to the work, or authenticity, versus having never seen these places and just painting from photos or something.
Right.
Yeah, it helps to have the experience of different conditions in those locations. Yeah.
And it's like filtered through us, you know, what's out there, and you filter it, because I mean, art without expression is pretty boring, you know, so you need it, and you need your own stamp on it, your own voice.
Yeah, and all three of you have created very singular expressions of your work, which is part of what's so fun of bringing you together in a show. Is there's this great unifying theme and collective, but at the same time, it's really singular, and you can stand back and go, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and that's fun to see. One of the things I really enjoyed working with the three of you is, as someone who spends a lot of my time researching the Taos Society of Artists and the early artists, and trying to really step into their world, you know, having the Couse-Sharp Historic Site, being able to have that visceral experience of stepping through their world, but they're no longer here. Their paintings are, and we're trying to, how do we tell that story? And just working with the three of you over the last couple of years, doing photo shoots, participating in that, you really get an idea of what that world was like, because what you guys do is not different really than their process. At all. You know, they were using photography. You know, Couse, when he discovers the camera, is just like, oh my God, this is amazing. What a great tool. And for me, like what I love is when you're doing a photo shoot and, you know, you've got models and you're in the moment, and then there's just this moment where magic happens, right? And you don't know when it's gonna happen, but there's something about that that it just clicks. And it's just like, wow. And it helps me imagine what that was like 100 years ago, right? Because it's hard to imagine that. You want to imagine it, but seeing you guys work is stepping into that magic and then translating it to a canvas, right? So it's all that layer for me that's just phenomenal to see, because it is a direct connection to what the artists were doing 100 years ago.
Yeah. It's like those moments you're talking about, and whether you're seeing a landscape and it hits you, or like Sunny Spruce is in the Sharp studio and the light coming in from the window. It's this like religious experience that happens, and that's the spark. You know, like that's those experiences. We all are inspired by nature in one way or the other. So it all starts. There's that spark of inspiration somewhere,
Right.
You know, and like you said, there's not a huge difference. The only difference is we have the ability to take thousands of photos in a shoot.
Yeah.
Where Couse was taking like 20 or something. You know, but it's all the same. That's the crazy thing about it. 100 years later, it's the same general process. You know, so it's cool. It's really interesting. Not a lot's changed.
No, not a lot has, and that's what's kind of amazing. And you guys talked about that last night a little bit. That, you know, yes, Taos has changed a lot, but has it really? I mean, it's still kept its essence of Taos, which is pretty remarkable in the postmodern world.
I mean, I
but
feel
it's
like,
still there.
Yeah, I feel like the training has changed. I mean, those guys were all trained classically, and
Yeah.
there was no cameras. It was just learn how to draw, learn how to compose, learn how to mix color. And so they already had that skill set when the camera came along, for the most part. I mean, I don't know, the first types of photography were, what, mid-1800s or something like that?
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, Couse doesn't take up the camera
But
until,
it's-
what, 1880s?
But as far as like widely used,
Yeah.
widely available cameras for personal use, they had already had their skill set.
Yeah.
And so they were just using it as a tool versus a crutch, you know, which is more kind of what you see nowadays. And it's fine. I mean, there's beautiful work being created from just photos, but it's different though. There's a different feeling because they knew, they had so much experience working from life that they knew, and the cameras weren't even getting close to what life looked like.
Right.
Like nowadays, it's like it gets so much information in the photograph. So, you know, you feel like you got to paint all that or something. And those guys knew already how to process that because the photos were pretty simplified halftones and stuff.
Yeah, in black and white.
Yeah.
Right.
And that all made their work stronger in some ways because they just had another set of access to reference, you know. Instead of trying to go out and get models, they could just take pictures and have a few dozen photos to work through winter or something, you know. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, when I started out, I was in Oregon for a while. We were there for 6 years, and I was painting out constantly. And you go, and I'd go take photographs too. But you come home with, on a trip, you come home with 72 photographs. You're like, man, that was a good trip. So then, and the information was lousy. You never knew. I mean, not as good as it is now. Not lousy, but there was enough there. But I think what I'm trying to say is, without going out all the time, I wouldn't have learned to interpret photos or how photos distort what I was seeing. And so then going out on the source and you know, helps you mix the colors that you're seeing and the values. I think it's more accurate. So then, yeah, gives you the ability to interpret the photos and know what's going on. If there's reflected light in there and there's color and it's not, the shadows aren't black and super dark. So
Yeah. And back to like that memory part too, that kicks in definitely when you're looking at a photo where you just took the picture last week and you're looking at it and you're going, that's not what it looked like. I remember what it looked like.
Right.
And so that helps inform the paintings. Yeah.
It's pretty easy to spot an artist that maybe hasn't put in that time painting outdoors and is relying heavily on photos, specifically with the color. It's tricky. It's I mean, all of us, we spend a lot of time either working from live models or painting outdoors, and that helps the whole process. Would like to mention, we are able to take thousands of photos, but I pride myself in being a horrible photographer. So what that forces me to like use that other side, like the knowledge I have from all those years of drawing and painting from live models or painting outdoors. And we all use photos as a starting point, but we're not painstakingly copying the photographs. They're something to refer to, but not copy. It's just, again, a point of reference. It's not, they're one of the tools in the whole process of making a painting.
I like that too. I've been reluctant to learn how to use. I have a nice camera, but I don't want to know how to use it. 'Cause if I take a really nice photo, I'm like, well, then that's all that needed to be said. So,
All right, another question for you. How did your upbringing, family affect your career trajectory? You know, did your parents say, "What? Are you crazy? You want to be an artist?" Or were they supportive? Or were family members artists?
I guess I'll go first. Yeah.
Go for it.
So my mom painted, like I said. She wasn't a professional artist, but she did paint, so we had artwork on the walls growing up, which I didn't really notice till later when I started painting. It's funny how that is. And so when I expressed interest in it in high school, I was, drawing little creatures and Martian stuff. And my mom was like super supportive. And I mean, my dad too, but my mom was more involved because she had the experience of painting. And I did my first oil painting, like of a wave or something. My grandfather bought it. He saw it and was like, "I'd like to buy that." and that was like so encouraging. And I don't think I picked up a brush till 3 or 4 years later to try to do anything else, and that's when I was doing the Martian stuff. But yeah, I think I had a lot of support and encouragement, and I don't know that they were seeing great promise or anything like that. It was just that family dynamic was. I was fortunate because I hear about artists that they don't have that as much. It's a little bit more like they don't take it seriously, and they have it's an extra struggle to get to a professional level if you don't have family and friends support. So yeah, I had a supportive family environment. It's good.
And my parents always had, like Vin said, art on the walls. And it's funny, my brothers and I used to walk around and we would look for the shapes, "Oh, that looks like a turtle," or whatever in the paintings. That's what we noticed about them. I wasn't noticing other things. But my dad was an emergency room doctor, and he always kind of painted. His dad always kind of painted. His dad was worked in magazines and did illustrations, and he was at the University of Iowa and studied with Grant Wood there. He never could make a career out of art, and so when my dad retired from medicine, he was really happy, but my dad's mom was really disappointed. She liked the prestige of him being a doctor. So he retired at 45, moved from Montana to Colorado to paint. He shared a studio with Clyde Aswig for a bit. And I always drew in high school. It wasn't aliens. I did skeletons of Mohawks. That was my But then I've never had a plan. I never said I'm going to be an artist, but I went to, when I was going to school, there was like a menu. I'm like, oh, you can take sculpting, printmaking, drawing, and then I just signed up for all that. But wasn't taking economics and math and all that other stuff. So that's why I say 3 universities, 4 years, no degree. But and we have kids growing up now too, and it's kind of terrifying. Like, are you going to get a job? But they never said that to me. They just kept encouraging me, and they'd see what I was doing, and they're like, go for it. And so both my mom and my dad were supportive, and then I finally quit school, and I went to live with my dad, and we would just go up to Rocky Mountain National Park and paint all the time. And it was great to have that with him. And he taught me, but he was a gentle teacher, and he wasn't too harsh, which maybe I could have used a little harsh words every now and then, but it was awesome. And then just seeing how a professional artist worked, seeing what he did and all the information. I mean, that was a big thing when I was in art school. They did not tell you put a frame on your painting or how to sell your work or how to get into a gallery. It was all just about the work. And I think that would be disappointing for these kids who got A's all going through art school or good grades, whatever, or accolades from the teacher. And then like, well, how do I make a living doing this? So my dad was a great bridge for that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when artists are asked how they got started or whatever, it's always drawing as a kid. There's like, instead of paying attention in class, we were doodling cartoons or whatever. So that was me. I was drawing cartoon characters and like comic book characters when I was a kid, all through, being a youngster through high school. And yeah, my parents showed support in those days, and they would my mom would frame a little drawing I did or something. And then after high school, I had a period of like being into music, and then I was into surfing a lot and made surfboards, and I was art sort of took a back seat in like my late teens, early 20s. And then basically, I guess after high school, I figured I had to do something with my life. Didn't have a ton of direction, but I always had art in the back of my mind. I went to one semester of community college. I always hated school. I was like, what am I doing to myself? So I stopped that. And then I always had that interest in cartoons, so I got an internship at a animation studio in Burbank in Los Angeles. And at that school, they at that animation studio, they suggested I go to this school to brush up on my drawing skills, where I started taking life drawing and then eventually life painting classes, painting figures and portraits and stuff. So through that whole process, my parents were supportive. Like, they never gave me any grief about not working. I mean, they were supportive, super supportive, paid for my school. My dad actually built me a studio in our backyard. I'm trying to think of the order of everything, but all through that schooling process, I think they saw the seriousness that I had. I was there a minimum of 6 days a week, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, drawing and painting from live models. And I'd go out during lunch breaks and paint landscapes. And then on the weekends, I'd go out and paint landscapes. So it was like, I think that they saw that I was serious about it. So there was like that support there as well. And then just after art school started, directly, like at the tail end of art school, started showing in a gallery. And that was it. I always tell people I never had to get a job. I never had to get a real job. This is all I've ever done. And feel super lucky to have done that. And only recently, my mom said that through that whole process, she never expressed her worry. She was definitely worried. Because it's a crazy profession. There's no path. There's no, like Josh was saying, people don't tell you how to get into a gallery or how to present a painting or do any of this stuff. So you have to kind of figure it out. Or if you're lucky enough to know some artists that are willing to share some of their knowledge with you, you get a little bit of a tip on how to do certain things. But yeah, my parents they hid their fear really well and were super supportive the whole way through. So that's pretty cool. And my dad, my dad, there's no artist in my family. My dad would have been an artist, but he was discouraged at a really young age. So that's kind of screwed him up. And later in life, when I had this great studio, he'd come, and it was right near where he lived. He'd come and paint in the studio. Started doing like copies of Ed Mell paintings and stuff like that. Pretty cool. So kind of came full circle for him.
Nice. I was going to say I had a similar thing with my parents. They talked with each other, and my dad asked my mom, "Can you do this?"
Should we really be supportive?
Yeah, because they saw that every chance I got, I was painting and working hard at it, and they saw that. That's, I think, the green line for parents, or should be at least, for support.
Yeah.
Speaking of, are there any artists that were pivotal, influential, helped you along that path that you remember that moment of like, yeah, that was really helpful?
Yeah. I'll chime in. I think like through the whole like span of my career, there have been several, and I kind of have relationships with artists, and then that kind of might fade away at times. But early on, Dan McCaw, who was down in Glenn, you went to high school with his son, right? Yeah. In California, super helpful. And a lot of the teachers I had were really helpful and encouraging. I studied with a guy named Joseph Mendez, and I think it was 2 classes a month. And then in between classes, he would ask you to bring all the paintings that you had done in between the classes so that he can critique them. So I'd come to class with a stack of paintings like that, and the other people would have a stack like this. And so he got the seriousness, kind of like my parents, and it was like, okay, this guy's working. And so he would give me great advice. But people like that, there's artists all along the way, even to this day. A little bit later here, but like Ned Jacob was super helpful. But on and on. I mean, these guys, it's been super valuable to become friends with them. Like I said, I saw how good Glenn was and Josh, and I wanted to be friends with them. And I've gained a lot just in like my abilities, because I've been able to, by osmosis, hang out with them and see what they do. So there's multiple people for me. I'm sure the same with you guys.
Yeah, for me, it was mostly my dad. And then I had a good friend who was in Montana. In my first gallery I showed at, I was still in college. And then when I was in painting, I would go and paint outside. I was studying film, not art or painting at that time. But anyway, he was leaving the gallery. He was carrying a painting out that didn't sell, and I'd never met him before. And I said, "I can't believe that painting didn't sell." He's like, "Here you go." Then we would go on paint trips and paint around Montana. His name's Taylor Line. It's interesting. He only sells on eBay, but he just likes that because he's his own boss. But
I bought one on eBay of his.
yeah, good deal. Taylor Line, Lynd.
Nice.
And then, yeah, John and Terry Moyers, but it wasn't formal instruction. It was mostly just going out and painting with them and just hearing what they were talking about and with art and with the business of art. And then, yeah, again, painting with these guys, then you just, you start to hang out with artists that are better than you, and then you say, okay, I got to turn it up a notch. And I think that helps motivation and, yeah, get serious. So.
Yeah, for me, it was like Logan said, I went to high school with Dan McCaw's son, Danny McCaw, and at one time I went to their house, and it's like, so your dad's an artist, He's like, yeah, he was like supporting the whole family with his art, and that was like such a encouraging thing. Like I wasn't necessarily trying to pursue art at that time, but it planted a seed in my mind that it's a viable way to live. And so then later on when I got serious about painting, that was a factor. And my mom owned a couple of John Sorrow paintings. She's also a California painter. And so she arranged for me to meet with him about some like advice. And I was doing The Martian at the time, so he's like, I don't even know what to tell you. But that was like really helpful to hear, because it made me think, okay, I gotta find something that has a little bit more substance. I don't know, something real to. And then that was one time I did maybe a few years later, I did my first landscape painting in Arizona, and that triggered everything in that direction. And I started looking at landscape painters and traditional painters and meeting artists, and it kind of snowballed. But a lot of my like inspiration came from just looking at art and art books. And it was almost like staring at a painting in a book was like an art lesson or something. And look at it and try to learn from it, and go out and paint and try to figure out how to achieve those effects or something. That was a helpful way to have, like you're saying earlier about the connection with artists from the past. And I feel like all artists are connected through time, regardless of ability. If you're putting paint on canvas, you're connected to Rembrandt, all that stuff. It's kind of neat that way. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm rambling on. But yeah, so and then when I moved to New Mexico, connecting with John and Terry Moyers and just painting with them and them offering advice on certain things, they just get things along the way, and I feel like it happens kind of naturally, and it shouldn't be forced. That if you're just painting, doing your thing, and maybe introducing yourself to artists along the way, they'll offer things. I've had a lot of great advice offered to me, and hanging out with these guys, I would say it's been a huge component to what I've learned, business advice, and talking about the meat of it all. It's kind of fun.
I got connected with the Moyers by this man named Dave Smith, who worked at Los Alamos Labs. He wasn't an artist, but he was good friends with Robert Lockheed in Santa Fe. And he would always have these little isms from Bob, he called him. But when I would say things about being worried about painting, I'm like, I don't know. And he just said, focus on paint good paintings, the rest will follow. And that's kind of how I've been doing it, or how I always did it. Like I said, I just followed opportunities. I never knew I was going to make it as an artist, and I still like, when's this going to dry up? I don't know. But yeah, so then that was super helpful to me, because it just took away. I mean, sometimes I was like, it's easy for you to say, but it took away some anxiety. Like, it's like, I don't have to make this happen.
Yeah. I feel like there's nowadays there's like an urge for quick, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Shortcut. Thank you. Yeah. Like, I think some of that's like social media has influenced that a bit. Like it took me a solid 10 plus years to get any kind of footing in the art world. Like I was just struggling. I mean, both with like my career side of it, but also my painting, trying to figure out who I was as an artist. And I feel like there's a lot of encouragement that comes from social media that I'm glad I missed. when I was developing,
Interesting.
because it gave me this freedom to like meander and figure out who I was without everybody watching every single painting I made and commenting on it, you know? And so it's tricky. Like if you get positive reinforcement on something, you're like, oh shit, I figured it out. I should do more of this. People like it.
Yeah.
And that's from an artist perspective, great compliments are as dangerous as a bad compliment or an insult on your art or something like that. Because like, you know, just, yeah, it's, you can get stunted pretty easily unless you've got the fortitude to just ignore it. And like when I hear a compliment, it goes in one ear and out the other because I know the truth, you know, so,
Well, you know.
yeah. But yeah, so I feel like we were lucky to come up, like I sound like I'm old, but we were lucky to come up in a time that we did where there wasn't such an emphasis on social media. And we just like, we're trying to, and still to this day, trying to get better as artists is the focus and not get a bunch of followers like on Instagram or something, you know?
Yeah, it's not this constant feedback loop or whatever. And I think that was beneficial because I think it helps you find your voice rather than what other people think you should be doing or known for. And whenever I hear someone say I'm known for this, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, it's like, cool.
That makes you want to paint something else.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you tell me I'm known for that, like I'm done painting now.
Thinking about your younger Martian, skeleton, Mohawk, and cartoon selves, is there anything you would say now to that younger self?
I think I'd say take it more seriously, but then it's also like, well, it all shook out, so I don't know. Like, be nicer to your parents.
I like it. Yeah, you owe them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, now that we have kids too, I'm like, yeah, I want them to tell that to their younger self.
But yeah, I think, like, you know, when you open up an art book and look at some of the work the masters did when they were like 16 or 19 or something, it's crazy. It's like museum quality work. And so yeah, maybe just take it more seriously, or get outdoors and paint or something.
Focus, study more, focus.
8-year-old painting outdoors or something.
Right.
Focus,
Start
study
them
more,
young.
focus.
8-year-old painting outdoors or something.
Right.
Start them young. They're kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer. I mean, kind of what Josh is saying, it all shook out. I ended up where I always had this feeling looking back that I should have left high school early because I hated it so much. But then who knows where I would have, I maybe wouldn't have been an artist. I maybe would have gone in some weird direction. And so it all shook out. I don't know. It's
Good.
I don't know. I'm okay with it all.
I always room for improvement. Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah.
When I say it's all shook out, I'm like, yeah, no, I still have things I want to do.
No, totally. I mean, I wish my ability was further along than it is, but in the sense of like, I am who I am and I want to like the person I am and who I am as an artist, I guess, without being egotistical, but just like being okay with who I am. And I ended up where I am. So that's okay.
With music, like sometimes you hear a band's younger music and it's got this raw energy and they don't know a thing, you know, they're just like, they can make some sound. And then as they progress, the more they know, maybe it gets a little less exciting, you know, so that's the thing, like, you know too much, maybe you're going to get too stiff or I don't know, and don't have that energy. So that's something too. Like I noticed that as I improve that I missed some of the energy from when I was younger. So I'm trying to bring that back.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
I think that like inspiration, coming from such a pure place in the early days when you weren't selling paintings, or like a band when they didn't have a record deal and they were just like pure music writing, songwriting. And then having like their second or third album, they've had some success and they're like, how am I going to top that? Or how am I going to keep up with this? And I'm sure it's the same in our world. Like, you know, you have a good show and then shoot, how am I going to do that again? And there's that thought in the back of your head, you know?
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Why don't we open it up to questions? I'm sure the audience has some zingers to catch these guys off guard.
Hi guys, nice to meet you. Brock.
Oh, hey, Brock.
To meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I won't give you any more compliments on Instagram.
Oh, no.
Just kidding, just kidding.
I mean, I appreciate any compliments. I just don't take it
No, I'm just
too
kidding.
super to heart.
I think my question is just to dive into, you talked about this trip that you guys took back in 2006 or whatever that was kind of life altering. And I've seen on your socials that you guys will take retreats out into the desert where, you know, you got Brett and you got Kim and Glenn and Josh, and what do you get from those? Is that a way to isolate yourself from the external forces, or a way to dive in and pass on the information you've gained over the years? What does that do to invigorate or harness the excitement that you've been looking for?
I think like with this most recent retreat, it's great to talk with other artists about art. It's a pretty solitary profession when you're painting studio paintings, and yeah, painting outdoors is kind of a social aspect. But I think what was really cool is if there was a bunch of artists all set up in one spot and seeing each artist's different interpretation and how they do it, and then you talk materials and like, oh, what are you painting on, and what's that color, and so I think that's really useful. But then also, yeah, I think we get into deeper ideas of what art is or what we're going for, and so I think that's really inspiring. And yeah, and then like on that last retreat, then Lynn Shamil's there too, and you're just like, that's like magic watching him put the painting together. So that thing is pretty cool, and it's gathering inspiration, I'd say.
Yeah, it's just real. Like it's you can connect with friends, texting or calling or looking at their work online, but when you're out there and you're connecting in person and seeing them paint paintings in real life, it's very different. And just kind of feeds your soul and have those connections with your friends and fellow artists in real life. Yeah.
The trips we go on are generally more informal, where it'd be a few of us or 4 or 5 maybe on a painting trip. But the trip that Brock's talking about, it's through Maxwell Alexander. So my brother owns the gallery, runs the gallery, and I had this idea to put together this artist retreat. We called it as a thank you to the artist, basically, because a gallery is literally, obviously, nothing without the artists and all their hard work. So yeah, just to get a group of the artists that the gallery works with together for that, like the camaraderie and just like team building, basically, like hopefully everybody felt appreciated. And but that was a pretty large group. I don't know how many people, 12, 15 or something. But generally they're kind of smaller, more intimate trips. But yeah, but that one, there was such a wide range. Like you said, it's like Kim Wiggins to Len Schmiel, and these guys are, so there's a huge variety of approaches to the landscape. Some people generally paint in the studio. Some people paint way more outdoors. So to see the different ability levels or different takes on the thing it's just a lot of fun.
And some figure painters like Michael Klein.
Right. Todorovich.
But it's also nice too that these are all professional artists, and then you can talk about the work that you're doing, but also you talk about life or what they're planting in the garden or things like that. And there's no demands of galleries or museums, or nobody wants anything from you. It's more like we're peers talking about our lives and what it's like to be an artist, or you just already know, I guess. Although there are some that have done a lot longer than us, and so maybe ask them some questions, and they're like, no, I don't want to answer that right now.
Yeah.
I'm having fun. I'm hanging out. I'm drinking a beers.
Very cool. Thank you, guys.
Hope we answered it.
Yeah.
Long-winded answer, but yeah.
I forgot you asked a question.
I know. Just like, well, the thing about art, yeah,
$10.
Took the bait.
Can you hear me?
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
First of all, I want to say thanks for this panel. It's been really great to listen to. My question is, I know that painting in the studio is really chill because it's temperature controlled and there's no bugs flying in your eyes. And I was wondering if there were some experiences that you guys all had out there that were very memorable because of the elements that you're like, wow, I'm going to remember this, and you still do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was painting and this dust devil was coming right for me. And it was the funniest thing. I tried to turn it off. So it was coming for me, and I started like spinning in the opposite direction. Didn't work, but my painting got it. But that was kind of a fun one.
Yeah, there's always knocked over easels and things like that. I just thinking about one was funny. I was painting with my dad in this place in Pony, Montana, and all of a sudden we felt this huge thump, but it's like they dropped a dump truck right next to us, and it was an earthquake. But and then later on, my dad, he's like, "Yeah, that painting is really good, but it sucks now because there's an earthquake." So, but yeah, and then it just this goes back to kind of parents being supportive. I think I backed over 2 easels, and then my dad is buying me.
Oh man.
Like you're excited, you're loading the car up, and then you're like, let's go, and you hear this thump. And the second time, I was like, I know what that is.
Familiar sound.
I recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think wind for me has been the biggest knocking over paintings, and the painting just get all, full of sand, which is frustrating. But another element is the human element. I remember I was painting in Santa Barbara once and doing this painting of the ocean, and this guy comes up to me, and there's always somebody who's going to comment on your painting. And he goes, "Oh, I see. Doing some abstract, huh?" I was like, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I should mention that too, the human element. I was painting in southern Utah. It was before Maynard-Dixon country, and as on Lake Powell, and the light was it was going fast, but it was just really nice. And so I'm in a hurry. I have headphones on, which I've learned are kind of helpful, like a human repellent a little bit. And sometimes I'd have cigars too, that helped. But this guy came up and he's riding his bike, and he asked me first, "Oh, are you a student?" And that's always like a great thing. I'm like, "Yeah." And then he kept talking, and I'm just watching this light disappear. So then I put the headphones back in, and then he rode his bike off, and then he circled back around, and he's like pointing at my ears, and I tip him out, and he's like, "I am the biggest plein air collector in the country." And then he rode off. Oh, damn. I missed that sale, but I wasn't even able to finish the painting in the first place. Like, I like you, buddy.
Another time I was painting in this like big wash in California, in Orange County. What's the name of that area? I can't remember right now, but these bullets were whizzing over our heads, and I was painting someone. He's like, "Hey, there's people over here," and it stopped, but it was just such a weird feeling.
Sometimes in Montana, I wear some orange in the fall. So
Yeah, good.
easel looks like antlers, maybe.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I was curious, when you're depicting and painting like the indigenous people of the Southwest, like whether you're using models or based off of photographs, what the process is with that and what the conversations were around that.
Yeah. Generally, the relationships I've made with people that I paint are the variety of ways. But here in Taos, a good friend of mine is Ashley, who runs the Parsons Gallery. So she went to school here in Taos, and so had friends that she went to high school with that she connected me with. And so I always feel like it's a very gentle process, and like a slow process, not just like, "Hey, you look cool, can I paint you?" You want to like just be sensitive and gentle and make sure somebody feels okay being painted. And but I mean, these are people that people in my paintings are generally people I become friends with and are super special to me in my life. There's another woman named Leanne, who I was actually teaching a workshop a long time ago in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she just walked in the door and was she was the model that day for the class. And so I was kind of blown away by her, and she saw my paintings and knew of my work, I guess, and was like, "Hey, you'd probably love to paint my uncle too." And so she showed me a picture of her uncle, who was this guy named Chesley Wilson, who has been just like a huge, important part of my life and career, and was like a super close friend. So a variety of ways, really. And just, yeah, sensitivity around, I mean, anybody really. I'm not just going to go up to a random person and say, "Hey, could I paint you?" Want it to be a slow, gentle process, and like make anybody feel comfortable. And even like with Chesley, I'm friends with his family still. He's passed away since, but he felt proud to be in the paintings that I made. Like he was in a Apache parade. I think it was like for Veterans Day. He was a Korean vet, and on the side of the truck that he was riding on in the parade, he had printed out one of my paintings and had his name Chesley Wilson and like one of my paintings on it. And he was in The Revenant. He was one of the actors in The Revenant, and so I think that picture of him was on there too from the movie. But So yeah, they're just like a closeness with the family, and they are kind of like giving me the blessing. I don't paint him super often anymore since he's passed, but like they like the fact that I'm painting him still, and kind of keep his legacy living on a bit, you know. But yeah, I don't know if that answers clearly, but
Yeah, for me, it's relatively new, and Davison's been a big integral part for helping me, introduce me to some models and, family members, my wife Sue, and so it's, like I said, it's pretty new for me. So relationships are maybe still forming, I guess. And, it helps to, maybe, I live in California, I don't get out here often, so the stay in touch type element is maybe present as I'd like it to be with some of the models I have worked with. But yeah, it is a gentle process. You want you feel comfortable and just kind of gel with your personality for your intentions and stuff. I think that's a big component, and it's really about honoring the individual in a lot of ways. When they understand that, I think it makes them more comfortable. And then, I don't know. Like I said, it's pretty new for me. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's, one of the things, again, going back to what I was saying earlier is, seeing you all work with models, and being a part of that, it really also helps me understand what the artists were doing 100 years ago. And, what it comes back to is relationships and trust. You can't project, you can't create these paintings with models without having a relationship and without having trust. Otherwise, it falls flat. And it's fun to see those relationships built, because as you see that trust, you see that there's something has to happen between the model and the artist. It's not here, pose, and I'm going to take a photograph. Something has to happen that creates a level of trust to where they can project, and in that magic moment happens. And so I think that's been validating for me to see, because it really helps me understand what those relationships were like 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, it probably would have been even more difficult to build that trust in those relationships. But, I really enjoy watching artists build relationships and continuing that tradition of telling these stories that are important American stories.
in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm closer to the people I paint than they are to me, because I'm often looking at their faces every day.
You're spending a lot of time with them.
Yeah, I'm studying them, and like I have this like almost imaginary friendship and relationship sometimes, like in a different way, because I'm looking at Dwight or like Dwyer or Sonny or whoever it is, or Chesley, like every day. So all these guys are like a big part of my life. I'm staring at their faces all the time, so.
That's wild.
People that own our paintings too, they're like, I look at your painting every day, and so they come up with a big smile and like, I don't remember who this person is.
yeah, it's an interesting connection, like you were saying, that there's an artist named Scott Burdick who's really an amazing figure painter and portrait artist, one of the best, and he was talking about a model one time that had a sadness about her. He couldn't paint around it. It's like, so like there's a connection there between what the model's experiencing and what the artist has been captured. And so, some of the models around here just emanate Taos, in a lot of ways, and that is something to go for, like that's what you want to capture. Versus something negative or something. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what I'm saying about that, but it's an interesting element.
Yeah, I mean,
there's like that literal connection too. Like Dwight is his mom's side is it Ben Lujan? He's his mom's side of the family is related to one of Couse's favorite models.
Yeah, Dwyer's a distant relative of Ben Lujan. Or not distant, but it's his great grandfather.
Dwyer and Dwight and Cruz.
Dwyer and Dwight.
Yeah.
So there is a direct connection to that.
That's wild.
Very cool.
To that, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, for me, like Sonny Spruce, he's just such an amazing, like, I call him the dude. If you don't know Sonny Spruce at the Pueblo, you need to go out and hang out with Sonny Spruce, because He is the Big Lebowski of Taos Pueblo, in my opinion, because he just exudes this coolness and this charm and wisdom, and everything is just, you just want to be with Sonny because he's so cool. And so I want people to paint Sonny because I want that projected, you know, and that's just cool.
Yeah.
You know, that there's a legacy and that something becomes, I don't want to say immortalized, but there's, in a sense, there's something to be able to capture that essence, I think is really important.
Yeah. That painting of Sonny that I did called The Sun in the Air.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, says all that in the title
Yep.
and the model, you know, so totally agree with that.
Yeah. Very cool. Any other questions? All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Big round for these guys. And again, a round of applause for Hotel Willa for being our host. Maxwell Alexander Gallery, which has been a great catalyst in our art world. And I should mention there is a sign-in book for Hotel Willa. I'm sure they would love to just know that this many people showed up and had a great time here. We also have free Maxwell Alexander baseball caps. I highly encourage you to take some home. Forest green, always fashionable. We also have catalogs, signed catalogs for sale, $15 for Sun Brothers. We have posters, which these guys will sign on the spot and personalize. Yes, that's what we like to hear. And there's mimosas, there's baked goods, and then we'll be opening up the exhibition at 1 p.m. at Couse-Sharp. So please come on up the hill and pay us a visit, and don't be a stranger. So thanks, you guys.
Thanks,
really
everybody.
great to have you.